Right, so this weekend, unified heavyweight world champion Oleksandr Usyk takes to the ring once again when he takes on former foe Daniel Dubois, the current IBF heavyweight world champion, in front of a packed out Wembley Stadium crowd when Usyk looks to become undisputed for a second time at heavyweight. Now, these two first met about 2 years ago, but to say that the heavyweight landscape has changed in the meantime would be an understatement. Usyk went off and became undisputed, and Daniel Dubois has gone on the best run of form in his career, culminating in an epic night at Wembley Stadium last September against Anthony Joshua. And this really was Daniel Dubois' homecoming as champion, because many of you may have forgotten that he didn't actually box Filip Hrgović for that IBF world title. He was actually elevated around a week or so after that fight, so he would have felt like, although overcoming Filip Hrgović was a feat in itself, he really wanted that homecoming fight, the chance to really announce himself as a world champion. And not only that, he was given the opportunity to do it in a fight that I would say at the time, maybe 90% of the general public had him as an underdog in. I think that the work that Anthony Joshua was doing under Ben Davison, who, let's have it right, was the in-flavor coach at that time. He was flavor of the month, Ben Davison, right? The work that Anthony Joshua was doing with him was looking really good, and boxing fans felt like all the stars were aligning to Anthony Joshua against Tyson Fury, potentially. But then Daniel Dubois had completely other plans. Those plans consisting of blitzing AJ within 5 rounds and hitting him with one of the most devastating knockouts to finish the contest that you will see in recent years. So it's fair to say that Daniel Dubois is on a very good run of form, but to actually beat Oleksandr Usyk, I believe that one of two things must happen. The first is Usyk must have declined a lot from that first fight. These fights with Tyson Fury must have taken a lot out of the Ukrainian genius. Or the second is that Daniel Dubois has improved enough since that first fight to this time be able to get the job done. And in my opinion, it really is that simple, because you have to remember that these two fought at a time when the heavyweight division wasn't the way it is now. Fights weren't being made month in, month out, competitive 50-50 fights that I'm on about. And the activity that has been able to give these heavyweights has given us as the boxing fans a better understanding of who is it and who isn't it. Riyadh season has ultimately helped us learn the truth about many of our favourite fighters. And what Riyadh season has taught us about Daniel Dubois, as well as the fact that he is one hell of a fighter, is that he has now come of age. He has matured. He's comfortable in his own skin, and he understands that the public have actually finally now bought in to his character. You combine that with some epic knockouts and big performances, and you're on to a winner. And when he boxed Usyk last time, I don't think that Daniel Dubois was as good technically as he is now. But I also don't think he was a million miles worse, you know. I actually think that the main difference in Daniel Dubois is his judgment and his decisions that he makes in fights, i.e. when to jump on someone and put the pressure on them. And realistically, he did a very good job against Usyk the first time round, some might argue. Some could say the best anyone has pushed Usyk since maybe Derek Chisora, perhaps. But it did always feel like Usyk was in there with a kid. And I don't think it does feel like that now. And I don't even need to question whether or not Daniel Dubois believes the low blow narrative, because you really don't need to question that. Daniel Dubois 100% believes that he legitimately hurt Oleksandr Usyk in that first fight, and therefore, if he believes he can hurt Usyk to the body, then I don't really see what's stopping him from going out there and trying to do that from the opening bell. I just think that's the version of Daniel Dubois that we now have, a version that is willing to walk in to the line of fire like he did against Filip Hrgović and wear you down until he gets to you. And if he can find a home for the sort of jabs that he was landing on Anthony Joshua, then he will definitely be able to bring power shots off of those jabs against Oleksandr Usyk. But Oleksandr Usyk is so much harder to hit than Anthony Joshua. And maybe Daniel Dubois' gas tank will be better in this one against Oleksandr Usyk. Maybe that's something he's worked on since. I have said a few times that I was staying in the same hotel as Daniel Dubois out in Saudi Arabia before the Day of Reckoning card, I believe it was, when he fought Hrgović, and I was so surprised to go up to the gym on the Thursday and to see Daniel Dubois doing sprints on the treadmill on the Thursday. That is high intensity stuff to be doing on fight week, but the fight showed that clearly there was reason for that, because Daniel Dubois was going in there looking to push the pace. However, when I speak about Daniel Dubois' methods to victory there are a lot of if, buts, and maybes. And one man that you do not want to rush in with without a plan is Oleksandr Usyk. Because Usyk isn't the hardest hitter in the heavyweight division, but he's definitely the craftiest one. And they do say that it's the shots that you don't see coming that hurt you. And fighting an opponent that is fixated on one thing and one thing only, and that is getting to you and doing damage, is something that Usyk has done time in, time out. In fact, he has forged an entire legacy on being able to do that exact trait. But let's not describe Usyk as a runner either, who only wants to counter, because this man's defense is often offense. Not even necessarily in the way of punches either. This man can just move in and out of range with his feet, giving you the illusion that he is going to throw, making you react, making you breathe when you don't want to, and ultimately zapping your gas tank. Because that's what happens when you give someone the illusion that you're in range to be hit, and then when they throw that punch, you're not there. Not only does it zap their gas tank, it zaps their confidence as well. And energy reserves are a big thing here in this fight. In my opinion, Daniel Dubois didn't get stopped by a jab in that first fight with Oleksandr Usyk. It just so happens he got jabbed when he got stopped. In my opinion, Daniel Dubois got stopped by being outboxed, being exhausted, and a sprinkle of being disheartened. Because I've had plenty of moments in fights when I've landed a good shot on someone for maybe 10 seconds, which is quite a long time in boxing. You think you're going to get that fairy tale finish, and then if you don't and your man recovers and he comes through and then he's back to his game plan, it can be a bit disheartening, and you have to get back to your game plan, and that can be a lot easier said than done. But at least in the moment you crack straight on. But if you were put in Daniel Dubois' position where he's hurt Usyk, he sees Usyk rolling around on the floor in pain, whether it was low or not, having to stand there and let that steam and energy and ferocity almost leave your body while you have to wait for your opponent to recover can definitely be something that can dishearten you. However, at the same time, it's also going to be something that you're going to draw massive confidence from, because you now know that you can hurt your man. The problem is the fighter in front of you is still the same Oleksandr Usyk, and considering this is a man who actively gives away advantages in his fights now, size, power, reach, height, weight, and so many others, you know that he's going to claw back every single advantage that he can get, whether it be physical, mental, or tactical. And therefore, if I am Don Charles, Daniel Dubois' coach, I will be doing things in sparring, like having sparring partners wait, and Daniel Dubois wait for 6, 7, 8 minutes in the ring, and then tell him at the drop of a hat like that, you have got to go and unleash and explode on that sparring partner. Because if that situation was to arise again, if that was to replicate itself again, Daniel Dubois needs to be better prepared. Now, I think the smart money says that if there was an early stoppage in this fight, it's probably Daniel Dubois getting to Usyk, and if it's a points decision, then it's probably going to be Usyk. But I don't know, man. I've taken a very, very keen interest in Oleksandr Usyk's career, and I am starting to see in the last few fights, especially since giving up all these advantages at heavyweight, that his body is starting to break down. And that will happen with hundreds of amateur fights and loads of world title fights. But remember, when I say his body's breaking down, maybe breaking isn't even the right word, because everyone's body breaks down at different paces. I suppose what I'm trying to say is I have noticed that Oleksandr Usyk is slowing down. I actually feel like the sharpest that we've seen Oleksandr Usyk at heavyweight was in the Anthony Joshua fights. And everyone speaks about, what did the Tyson Fury fights take out of Oleksandr Usyk? Well, what did those Anthony Joshua fights take out of Oleksandr Usyk? What was all the heavyweight sparring taken out of Oleksandr Usyk? And the fights with Fury that he's had, they have got to have put some miles on the clock. And they look a little bit like they have, because his feet have definitely slowed down in the Dubois fight and the two fights with Fury, as opposed to how much he was moving in the Anthony Joshua fights. But then you could look at it from the other side, and you could just say, well, maybe he's just comfortable at heavyweight now. Maybe I'm the one that reads false data here, and maybe he has just adapted to fighting bigger men. He's able to soak up a little bit more punishment, and he understands that in doing that, he's going to have a better chance at getting to them. So if you want to lead the dance and take the center of the ring and boss a fight, you have to accept that at times you will be hit. It is a work hazard. And although he didn't push Dubois back the way that he did Tyson Fury, Oleksandr Usyk still made sure that he battled for the center of the ring against the young, strong Daniel Dubois. And unlike Tyson Fury, Dubois doesn't really have that trait of being able to nick a breather, or at least if he does, he doesn't do it. And what I mean by that is, when you see Tyson Fury going for a walk, when you see him clowning, when you see him holding on to the ropes and pulling phases and things like that, it rattles the crowd, it riles them up, it makes them think that he's showboating. But in my opinion, what he's doing is nicking a rest, because the pace with Oleksandr Usyk is so frantic, and as the rounds tick on, you really do start to feel that pace, as did Fury and as did Daniel Dubois. And the smart money would say that, being, in my opinion, the exception to the rule, Tyson Fury is a man who is basically a freak of nature and goes against what you would expect from the human body, and therefore he could go back decades and probably fight 15-round fights and be able to navigate his way through those fights. But what Daniel Dubois can do at this stage in his career that Tyson Fury may not be able to do is he can bring pure aggression from the first bell. And it's actually really ironic, because the exact way I see Dubois winning this fight is also the way that I see Dubois losing this fight. I think that Daniel Dubois needs to do exactly what Ben Davison famously told AJ to do, and that, my friend, is to roll the dice. Because I'm just going to put it out there right now, I don't believe that Daniel Dubois wins many rounds against Oleksandr Usyk. I do believe that Daniel Dubois can do damage within those rounds, but I still think that on the scorecards, those rounds will go to Oleksandr Usyk. So when you get to the 9th and the 10th and the 11th, you get desperate. You get desperate because you know that you're down on the scorecards. And when you become desperate, you start to take unnecessary risks. And when you do that against Usyk, you very quickly unravel. So bearing in mind, I said that judgment was everything for Daniel Dubois. There's two ways that you can take down a house. You can remove it brick by brick until it is all demolished. Or you can just bulldoze it. And if Daniel Dubois tries to dismantle Usyk piece by piece, he will be pieced up himself. That's my opinion. Stay too long in front of Oleksandr Usyk, give him too much to look at, too much information to download, and he will formulate a game plan to beat you. And Usyk has multiple ways that he can win this fight, in my opinion, but two specific ones. He can do what he's done for 80% more or less of his career, which is take it one round at a time and assess things as they go along. Check the temperature, really, of your opponent as you go, and then evaluate whether you want to look and force a stoppage. But as for Dubois, in my opinion, he needs to accept his fate as soon as possible, because the sooner you accept that this fight either ends one way or another, the better chance you've got of it ending the way you want it to. And once he accepts that fate, I believe that that is Daniel Dubois' superpower in this fight. Now, I actually believe the Usyk against Fury 1 was the closer fight, and I believe that that was the fight that would have took more damage out of Oleksandr Usyk. There was a moment in, I believe, the 6th round when Usyk was visibly in trouble, maybe the most hurt we've seen him in his professional boxing career so far, and I do know that if Daniel Dubois gets Usyk in that sort of trouble, that he at this moment in time is probably a better finisher than Tyson Fury. Dubois needs to bank on capturing that moment and then demolishing Oleksandr Usyk, because at 38 years old, there are opportunities that you are going to have against Usyk that you will not have been presented with 5 or 6 years ago. But in those 5 or 6 years, Usyk has been fighting at the top level, whether it is beating everyone in the cruiserweight division or everyone in the heavyweight division. And the experience he will have gained from those fights will have added vastly to his skill set. So as much as I do think that Usyk would like Daniel Dubois to come and stand off and maybe have a bit of a boxing match with him and ease his way into the fight, I don't think he's going to lose much sleep if Daniel Dubois doesn't do that. I think that Usyk knows that part of winning this fight is letting Daniel Dubois do the hard work for him, throw plenty of shots, drain that gas tank, put every ounce of power into every single shot, and then Usyk just needs to back his ability to still be there as the rounds go on, still be banking rounds, still be ticking over, and as Daniel Dubois starts to tire, then Oleksandr Usyk can continue to either cruise to a points victory or look at forcing a late stoppage again, neither of which I'd actually rule out at this moment in time. But Daniel Dubois is actually a far more educated boxer than a lot of people give him credit for, so maybe I'm wrong, and maybe putting all his eggs into one basket and going for everything in that first 5 or 6 rounds isn't the way that Daniel Dubois will go, but for my money, that is what Daniel Dubois must do in this fight. Go out there with bad intentions and do the maximum damage you can, and understand that in doing that, you will need to walk into the line of fire. And by walking into that line of fire, you may get yourself hurt by Oleksandr Usyk. But sooner rather than later, someone is going to succeed with those bulldozer tactics against Oleksandr Usyk, because Father Time is undefeated, and this could be the fight where someone does succeed with those tactics. But I can't let you lot know whether or not I think that's going to happen just yet, because we are going to be live inside Wembley Stadium for this one, live on the Pain Game, which is linked in the description to this video. Saturday night, myself, True Geordie, and the rest of the boys will be covering the fight, will be calling it, and the reactions will obviously be epic. So make sure you are there for that one, and I will see you all in the next one.